Okay, evet. Şimdi record açtım ve başlıyoruz. Bugün gelecek zaman hakkında konuşuyoruz ve gelecek zaman çok kolay bir tense. It's very easy tense. Like if you know present simple and present continuous tense, this tense is going to be very easy peasy for you. Before we start, I'm just going to start with this chart, the vowels of the Turkish, as always. And in Turkish, we have two vowel harmonies. We have the A-type vowel harmony and we have the I-type vowel harmony. And in future tense, we are going to be using this one, the A-type. Yani, we have two options. So it's going to make it a little bit easier compared to the other tenses. You only have two options. It's either AcAk or it's going to be AcAk. So my future tense, before future tense, if you, as I said, if you learned present continuous and present simple tense, which is ıyor, iyor, uyor, üyor, you already know that you can use it in the meaning of future. You can always use this as a future, and it actually makes it a little bit more certain if you are using this one. You can say, Ahmet yarın Ankara'ya gidiyor. You are talking about future. Gelecek sene Amerika'ya taşınıyorum. You are talking about future. 10 dakika sonra geliyorum. You are talking about future. Pazartesi derslere başlıyoruz. You are talking about future. But when it comes to the real future tense that we have in Turkish, then you can use this one. And as I said, it is this either acak or ecek. But we also have this buffer that we actually use a lot because it's a suffix that starts with a vowel. So when I have a verb that ends with a vowel, just like the verb başla, then I'm just gonna need a buffer. Ahmet 2 ay sonra tatile gidecek. For the verb git, there is no y because git ends with a consonant. But the verb başla ends with a vowel, so that's why I have to put this y. So I have another example about the buffer. I have the verb uyumak. If I put the future tense without the buffer, it's gonna sound uyuacak. Like I have to stop when I have to say when I'm saying it uyuacak, uyuacak. It's gonna be difficult for me. Two vowels never come together in Turkish, unless it's a word root. But when I put the y, basically I connect these two sounds uyuyacak. It sounds it's easier to make it. And the same goes for başla. If you want to say it's going to start, then you can basically say, let me hear it.
Başlayacak.
Başlayacak. Just like that. Exactly. If I say başlayacak, it's going to be difficult for me to say that. It's easy peasy.
Excuse me, and what does it mean in English?
Başlayacak is it's going to start. And uyuyacak is he or she or it is going to sleep.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sir, is there the difference in the meaning jack and jack?
There is no single difference, Munshat. All you have to consider is the last word, is the last vowel of your verb. Let's go back a little bit. I'm going to give you two examples. For example, I have the verb yapmak, which means to do. So if I want to say I'm going to do my homework, I would say ödev yapacağım. Actually, let's say he's going to do his homework. Ahmet ödev yapacak. So when I use it with a verb yapmak, I use acak, Munshat. But if I use it with the verb, let's say gelmek, Ahmet okula gelecek. When I use it with the verb gel, then this time I use ecek. The reason, Munshat, because the verb yapmak, my last vowel is a. So according to my vowel harmony, it has to go with a. It has to go with AcAk. And in the second example, my verb is gel. And my last vowel is e. So that's why this time I'm going to use AcAk in it. That's the idea. So when you...
Anladım hocam. Teşekkürler.
Rica ederim. When you have the verb koşmak, which is to run, then you're going to say koşacak. Ahmet koşacak.
Is this like the future continuous tense in English, or more
No,
like
it's actually
the
just future.
like I will go?
Yeah, I
to-
will go. Yeah.
Like, is there any difference between like I am going to the store or I will go to the store?
Not
Are
really.
they different?
Not really. Yeah, that's what I basically said over here. I mean, this one is actually more certain. So when you compare it with in English, this acak ecek is more like will, and this one is more like I'm going to go. Tamam? So we talked about buffer. Oh yeah. Other than that, yeah, so we basically have 4 options in terms of this future tense. We're either going to put acak or it's going to be ecek, as we have 2 vowel harmony options. And I can also put yacak and yecek at the end of the verb if it ends with a vowel. Let's find an example for all of them. We already said one of them. Ahmet. Ahmet is going to run. Ahmet will run. Then it's going to be Ahmet
Koşacak.
koşacak.
Koşacak.
That's it. And if I want to say Ahmet will swim,
Yüzecek.
Ahmet
Yüzecek.
yüzecek. This is my verb. Hala. Tamam. And if I want to say Ahmet will walk, o zaman Ahmet yürüyecek. This time I have my Y. And let's say Ahmet will start. Ahmet
Başlayacak.
başlayacak. Exactly.
Başlayacak.
So I have an example for all of them. I have this yacak, I have yecek, I have ecek, and I have acak. Tamam? You have 4 options. But we also, sometimes, it's also very easy to remember, change the k that we have at the end of acak to soft G. Just like in this example. Bu pazartesi Ayşe ile sinemada film izleyeceğiz. So this soft G actually comes from the Ketchup Rule. Some of my students will remember it. In Turkish, we have a rule that is a little bit weird. In English, it's called consonant devoicing, but I basically call it Ketchup Rule because in Turkish, the letters K, T, Ç, and P. Most of the time, when you put a vowel right after these letters, they become softer. So K goes a little bit soft, and it becomes soft G, and sometimes it becomes G. T, it becomes softer, and it becomes D. Ç, it becomes softer, and it becomes J. And P, it becomes softer, and it becomes B. But as you can already you can see it, like this one is a sharp one, T, and this one is a soft version. Like it's basically it comes from the same part of our mouth, but it's just a softer version of it. T, D, Ç, J, P, B. Okay? Other than that, yeah. So basically, we only apply this if my pronoun is ben or biz. So if I'm included in that verb, then I have to change my K to soft G because it's either I or it's probably we. So in this example you can see akşam dışarıya çıkıp biraz yürüyeceğim. So I don't say yürüyeceğim. I basically change the K over here because of the E. I make it yürüyeceğim. Bu pazartesi Ayşe ile sinemada film izleyeceğiz. This time it's we. I'm going to watch movies with Ayşe. We are going to watch. Yarın evde parti yapacağız. We are going to do it. So whenever it is I and whenever it is we, we apply this rule. As I said, it's easier to remember. As long as you know this ketchup rule, it's going to be very easy. And I probably have some examples for this ketchup rule. Yeah, right over here. So this ketchup rule, if I have to explain it a little bit more, it doesn't only happen when there is a tense on it. When we basically put a case marker, we learned them on Tuesday. If we use them with a dative case marker, if we use them with a possessive suffix, if we use them with a genitive suffix, then if we use them with a possessive again, we basically have to change these te, che, ke, another ke, and te to soft versions. But it doesn't always happen. So you have to remember, you have to hear them to learn them. When I was like preparing the slides, I was also talking with my friends and I asked him like to give me a word that ends with T so that I can write it as an example. And then he said sepet, which is a basket. But for example, this one, it doesn't change. It's always te, sepetim, my basket. Like it's always T. But for example, the word umut, which means hope, when you say my hope, umudum, I mean, we have to change it in that case. Tamam? So it doesn't always apply to all of the words. Just sometimes, most of the time, let's say. Yeah. Actually, we also have this consonant devoicing in 3 verbs. And you probably remember them by the yor tense already. And they are git, et, and tat. They already end with a T. And only just for these 3 verbs we apply it. When we put this AcAk and AcAk right after them, we have to change the T to D. Gideceğim instead of giteceğim. It's even difficult to say that, giteceğim. Or maybe we got used to it like that. But when it comes to negative, as now your verb root is not, it doesn't end with te anymore, as it ends with me, you don't have to change it when it comes to negative. It's always going to stay the same, gitmeyeceğim. And the verb etmek is a little bit confusing because it doesn't have any meaning alone. But when you use it with a noun, then it makes something, it makes sense. So I use the verb yardım etmek. So when you say yardım edeceğim, the T changes to D. But when you use it with a negative sentence, nothing happens to the verb root. It's going to be the same. And you probably have an idea now how to make the negative form. As you can see over here, we have this ma and me. In future tense, negative form is basically very easy peasy compared to the present continuous tense, because all you have to do is again to put ma and me at the end of the verb root, and then you always this time have to put either yacak or yecek, because all of the verbs that are negative, they end with a vowel. Gelme, gelmeyeceğim. Oynama, oynamayacağım. Gitme, gitmeyeceğim. So that's the idea about negative. Negative form. And also, we have another kind of an exception about the verb yemek and demek, as they have only one syllable and one vowel, and they also end with a vowel. When we are adding AcAk and AcAk to these ones, we don't say yeyeceğim because it's going to be even difficult for us to say. It just devoices a little bit and it becomes yiyeceğim. It becomes ye instead of ye. Yeyeceğim is going to be difficult for me. But with the negative, it's going to be again the same. Nothing changed. It's going to stay the same. Yemeyeceğim. Because this time I have two vowels, so it's going to be easy for me to say it. But when it's a one vowel, one syllable, it's a little bit difficult. The same idea for demek, which means to say, to tell. When I say I am going to say, I am going to tell, I will tell, then it's going to be diyeceğim. But when it's a negative, it's going to be the same. Demeyeceğim. Bir şey demeyeceğim.
Sometimes the J is also being silent, hocam. Like deyim ya demeyin sometimes.
Yeah, I'm going to actually talk about it, Munshat. Was that you, Munshat? Who was talking? Sorry.
Evet hocam.
Tamam. Thank you for reminding. I'm actually going to talk about it a little bit at the end of the lesson because this is a little bit difficult for foreigners in terms of speaking. Because in terms of speaking, we never talk like this. We never say yiyeceğim, yemeyeceğim. Turkish people never talk like that. They usually make it a little bit shorter. They basically say, I mean, it's going to be a little bit kind of an like an informal version, but we usually use it. Instead of yiyeceğim, we basically say yiyeceğim. Okay, that's it. And for the negative, it becomes yemeyeceğim. So that
Aynen
would be
öyle.
that would be the difficult part about future tense, and you basically have to learn it by yourself, by hearing people, by watching series, by hearing them in the series. There's no particular rule for the spoken part. Because in some areas it changed totally. Like in Istanbul, it is something like that. In other parts of Turkey, it's something different. And this is the paradigm that I have for AcAk and AcAk, the negative form, the positive form, the question form, and the negative question form. In that case, it is really similar to the present continuous tense, this ıyor, uyur tense. So all you have to do when you are making a question, let's say, you're going to keep the verb and then the tense. Then you put the pronoun suffix at the end of the question, mı, mi, mu, mü. İstiyor muyum? İsteyecek miyim? Geliyor muyum? Gelecek miyim? It's going to be exactly the same, just like the yor tense. But of course, for onlar, as this plural suffix lar and ler and this question suffix mı, mi, mu, mü, as they hate each other, we never put them together. So onlar is a kind of an exception in this rule. I'm going to give you 1 minute if you are writing down the chart, or if you want, you can take a screenshot. You can also ask any questions if you have right now. If you are learning Turkish by yourself, and if you are really into the grammar point of Turkish, I really suggest this book, by the way. A Student Grammar of Turkish.
It's called the Grammar of Turkish.
A Student Grammar of Turkish. This is the name of it.
Ah,
Yeah. Okay, moving on. And then we have some time expressions, of course. We don't have to use them all the time, but if you want to be specific, then you can basically use them. And there's one thing that I want to focus on, and that is this haftaya and seneye. Turkish people, when they are talking about the next week and the next year, they don't say gelecek hafta. No one says it. Like in a spoken language, you have to be very formal to say this one. Usually in spoken language, we basically say haftaya. That means like next week. And seneye, it's exactly the same. Next year. But unfortunately we don't have the option for the next month. It's always gelecek ay. We don't have any word like aya. Like we don't say that. We just say gelecek ay. But yeah, for next week and for next year, you can use these two words. They are lovely. Haftaya, seneye. We also use this one a lot, birazdan, which is like a little later, in a bit. I'm gonna do it in a bit. I don't know. And you probably already know yarın. It's a very important word. And yakında and çok yakında, they mean soon and very soon. I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to write them down if you want.
Hocam, year is also called yıl. And sene also. I just heard yıl.
Aha, yıl ve sene, bunlar aynı Munşat. Tamamen aynı. Hiçbir fark yok. Ama we also don't say we can use seneye for the next year, but we cannot use yıla for the next year. We always use seneye. But you can say gelecek yıl, gelecek sene. They both work also. Bravo.
how do you say
Tamam
in?
hocam.
How do I say what? Sorry, Hayla?
How do you say in the future? Like in the future, I want to be an astronaut.
Then you can basically say gelecekte. Exactly the same idea. The literal translation would be in the future. Tamam. And then the last thing to talk about. So in every tense of Turkish, we have a rule to make a nominal sentence. What I mean by nominal sentence, a sentence with no verb. I am a teacher, she is a doctor, he is a pilot, those kind of sentences. There's no action. In future tense, I always need this verb olmak, which means to be. So it's again very similar to English in that terms, like I will be happy, I will be a doctor, I will be this, I will be that. You always need to talk about, you always have to put olmak in your sentence if it has no verbs. Ayaklarım üşüyor. Sanırım hasta olacağım. And this one is lovely, by the way. It's a lovely expression. Sanırım. I think, I suppose. Hava bulutlu. Galiba yarın yağmurlu olacak. Galiba is another lovely word, which basically means I guess, I think. O Ayşe ile evlendi. İnşallah daha mutlu olacak. Inshallah is another lovely word that probably most of you already know because Turkish people use it a lot, which means hopefully or I hope. And the last one, inanıyorum bir gün ben de Elon Musk gibi zengin olacağım. So, yeah. Anissa, hangi örnek için söylüyorsun? Ha, acaba. Acaba ile farkı ne mi?
Acaba ne fark eder? Sanırım galiba.
Acaba da biz genelde soru soruyoruz. Anissa, acaba nereye gitsem? Acaba ne yapmalıyım? We always use a question with acaba. Like, of course.
Ha.
It's like I wonder.
Evet, I wonder gibi. It doesn't have to be question all the time, but we usually use it as a question like, acaba where is she? I wonder where is she gibi. Tamam. But as I said, it doesn't have to be question as well. Valla, other than this, I think I'm done. Yeah. Wow. I thought it would take longer. This was basically the last workshop of this season. I hope I'm gonna do the next ones in 2 months or 2 or 3 months. I haven't decided yet. But before we finish, just for a practice, I'm also gonna start the recording.